Hi, welcome to English 10. We teach periods 1, 2, and 3, and I'm Mary Beth Jordan.
And I'm Michelle Viviano.
So let us tell you a little about ourselves. I've been teaching English 9 and 10 at Mamaroneck High School. This is my 9th year teaching. I grew up locally. I grew up in White Plains and went to White Plains High School. Teaching is not my first career. I was a magazine editor for many years in New York City. I switched and became a teacher. I live in the town of Mamaroneck, and I am the mother of 3 sons, all of whom have graduated from Mamaroneck High School.
And I'm Michelle Viviano. So I teach English 10 with Mary Beth. This is my 17th year at Mamaroneck High School. I taught in another district prior to that. I grew up in Rockland County. I still live there today. Teaching has been my only career. I started right out of college. So I've been doing this now for about 23 years. I'm also a department chair here at the high school, and I have twin 12-year-olds who are in 7th grade this year. So in terms of the co-taught classroom, some of you may be familiar with the co-taught classroom and some of you may not. Your students at this time have had us for a few weeks and have gotten very quickly used to the co-taught classroom if this is their first experience. But what a co-taught classroom is 2 full-time teachers in the classroom every day. We are both certified in English and we have equal roles in everything that goes on in the classroom. So we do our planning together, we do our teaching together, and we do our grading together. We ask that if you or your student are going to email us, that you email us both. It's very important that we're both in the loop with everything that's going on with our shared students and with our shared class. And one of us will always write you back pretty quickly when you email us.
So the theme in English 10 is identity. What is identity and how is it formed? What forces, both internal and external, shape who am I, who I am, and who I may become? So we love this theme for 10th grade because it's developmentally and age appropriate for your 10th graders. They're really right at this point in their lives where they're making decisions about who they are, who they want to be, and what kinds of things impact that. Another thing you should know about 10th grade English this year is that your child will take the English Regents in the spring, and the preparation for that will be both explicit in our classroom, but also it'll be infused in everything we do all year long. So let's just start with what will we write in English 10? Your students, we believe that students must be able to communicate effectively in life. So they will write not only Englishy things, but different genres for different audiences. So yes, they'll do literary analysis, but they'll also do argumentative pieces. They'll write personal narratives and informational texts. They'll write some persuasive things, but also creative expression. I majored in creative writing at Brown University, so we hope that some of the poems and short stories that they write will really be telling and really connect with who they are at this point in their lives. The process by which we will do this is we will draft things. They will get graphic organizers if they need them. We'll revise. We do lots of writing in class, and then they will do their final drafts. The first thing that they've actually already handed in are their Where I'm From poems. And if you haven't read your students, find a subtle way to ask if you can see it, because they are so moving and so personal, and they really talk about powerful memories from their childhood. The next thing we're going to write is a personal narrative. We started this unit this week, and these are some of the mentor texts you see on screen that we'll use to inform how to write a good personal narrative. But we do all sorts of writing, and sometimes it's informal responses to what we're reading in class. They all have journals, whether it's digital or in their composition notebooks. So sometimes they're writing, responding in a sort of analytical way, but sometimes they're responding in a way like, how does this make you feel? So this goes on all year long, and that sort of builds their stamina for writing, but also their deep understanding of texts. One of the things we love to have the students do is combine their independent reading, which I'll talk about in a little while, with their in-class reading. So for instance, when we read Macbeth, they will write a soliloquy from one of the characters in their independent reading books. One of our favorite writing assignments of the year is a persuasive piece, but it is not your typical argumentative essay. It's a proposal for the district to do a human rights exhibit. And we do this after we've read not only Night, but also a few other Holocaust texts. And they have to propose this exhibit using evidence from the things that they've read and the quotes that have moved them throughout this powerful unit. They write another persuasive piece based on a New York Times opinion section called The Privacy Project. And we combine this with our dystopian literature unit, and they get to write about any topic related to privacy that they are interested in. So maybe it's their digital footprint, maybe it's social media, maybe it's facial recognition or contact tracing during the pandemic, smart home technology, tracking systems in general. They not only have to evaluate and research information about these topics, but then they come up with their opinion based on the research.
So a second major component of our class is what we read. So we read a mix of fiction and nonfiction, classic and contemporary, informational and opinionated texts. We hit many genres throughout the course of the year, from novels to short stories to essays and plays and poems. We will at certain times look at lyrics, newspaper articles. We view a few films, not that many, but a couple maybe. And we read as a class, we read in book groups, and we have independent reading. And so we'll talk a little bit about each of those for you. So we start our year with a short story unit. After we're done with personal narrative, we'll transition into short stories. And these are a variety of short stories by women authors. It allows for student choice because they'll be grouped according to which stories they choose, and it allows for interesting conversations. It's an easy way to transition into the reading that we'll do all year in this class. We also do a Holocaust literature unit, as Mary Beth mentioned before. We do read Elie Wiesel's Night. We usually kick off this unit with a viewing of Schindler's List. It's a very long movie, but it also really is impactful for the students. It's a nice way for us to lead into what they're going to read in Night. It takes us about a month to get through this unit, and we use a lot of lessons from Facing History and Ourselves. We look at poetry written by survivors. We do give the students optional film lists, things that they can work on their own time if they're interested in furthering their studying of the Holocaust. We also read the Laramie Project, which is verbatim theater, and we read it as such aloud together in the classroom. It's crafted from interviews with real people in the aftermath of the murder of Matthew Shepard in 1998 in Laramie, Wyoming. Matthew Shepard was a young gay college student, and this really lends itself to how hearts and minds can be changed, and we have a lot of interesting conversations around this text as well. We do a unit on dystopian literature. It really appeals to students, especially teens today. We read George Orwell's 1984, which is always really interesting to compare to contemporary issues. And then we follow that up with online identities and the impact of digital footprint, as Mary Beth talked about before, in our digital identity unit. Our Shakespeare text this year is Macbeth, and we grapple with things like ambition and greed and gender roles. We again start with a filming of A Simple Plan, which has a lot of those same themes tied throughout it, and we make comparisons with that and with Macbeth. This is their second Shakespeare, and we will read it aloud in class instead of letting the students grapple with it at home. One of our favorite units all year, and typically one of the students' favorites, is our book group unit. And we do a book group on monsters. And this is unique to our class. We've really crafted this unit over the years, and students get to choose a story about monsters. And, you know, it's metaphorical monsters as well as real monsters. And we talk about how monsters live within each person and what that really means. These are some of the books that are choices for the students, and we do a lot of book talking around these books before students make their choices. And then they're grouped with people that are reading the same book as they have chosen.
So independent reading is alive and well in 10th grade at Mamaroneck High School. And it's important in our curriculum because it gives students a chance to focus on pleasure and choice. Miss Viviano and I have a huge library right in the classroom, but your children also have access to the Mamaroneck High School library, and as well as any books you have at home, the public libraries, etc. The more students read, the more they like a book, the more they'll read. I mean, I think we know that as adults. And what we try to sort of lay the groundwork for students is that in college, first-year students often get asked to read as much as 200 to 600 pages a week. And so we need to build the stamina starting now. So if kids are reading books they like, books they choose, they'll read more, and then they'll start to build the stamina that they'll need for the upper level classes here and then in college. Your students will read 10 minutes a day in our class, but they're also supposed to read 2 hours a week outside of class, above and beyond all their homework. So you should see your student with a book, whether it's a hard copy of a book or an ebook, reading at home 2 hours, doesn't matter when, but 2 hours a week. We do a couple of graded assignments. They're working on one right now on their first book. And that's one way we hold them accountable for their independent reading. And we try our best to book match, confer with them, find them books that they really like, but also expand their menu and repertoire of genres and increase the challenge throughout the year.
In terms of homework, we are very thoughtful with our homework assignments. We do not give homework every night. We also give a lot of in-class writing time around essays. But what we do ask is that the homework is done and submitted on time. We grade homework as well as classwork, so it doesn't impact students' grades when they are late with homework, but we do take late homework, and that's something that we try to explain to students, that it's always better to get it in, even if it's late, than to not do it at all. And in terms of extra help, we haven't had office hours since the pandemic, but now office hours are back. So these are daily from 2:40 to 3 p.m. on most days. Students can drop in or they can make an appointment, and they are very familiar with the two locations. Mary Beth is in our classroom, C109, which is in Palmer, and I'm in my office in A200, which is in Post. So students have two opportunities for that one-on-one time with each of us, and we do encourage that as often as possible, but especially when they're struggling with their writing or with their reading or need some, focused help on a specific area. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our video, and we look forward to working with your students.
Thank you, and have a great rest of the evening looking at other videos.